Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission meeting, July 10th, 2023, 6 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk.
City Attorney Doctor.
Here.
City Manager Burton.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The minutes from 6:20, 6:21, and 6:26 were received. Do we have any corrections, additions? They will be received as submitted. Board appointments. I am recommending the following board appointment. City County Consolidated Planning Board, appointment of Joseph Gilbert to an interim term on the City County Consolidated Planning Board as a representative of Conservation District. Interim term will expire September 1st, 2025. Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I would move to accept the following board appointment of Joseph Gilbert to an interim term on the City County Consolidated Planning Board as a representative of Conservation District. Interim term will expire September 1, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Commission proposes. What say you?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just an idea. I'm looking for consensus amongst my colleagues here tonight for maybe the direction of staff, but to look into this particular proposal. But the Biden-Harris administration recently launched a $7 billion Solar for All grant competition to fund residential solar programs that lower energy costs for families, particularly in low income and disadvantaged communities. And I think that fairly well speaks for itself, but the program, the deadline to apply to this competitive grant competition is September 26th. So the clock's kind of ticking. Eligible applicants to the Solar for All include states, territories, tribal governments, municipalities, and eligible nonprofit recipients. So I thought might be worth maybe having someone from staff looking into it. So I was hoping to get consensus here this evening to give that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Logan, for bringing this up. I would very much support looking into / applying for this. The one thing I'd love to hear more about as we move through the application or to hear what our options are particularly for renters. A lot of families in rental housing don't have the option. They're not homeowners. So I'd be interested to hear how this program can support people who are renters in lower income neighborhoods, but generally speaking, very supportive, and thank you for bringing this up.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate Commissioner Logan bringing this up. I'm very supportive. I think starting to move on this would be really great. I know that earlier in the year, we had started discussing applying to a number of other grants that have become available through the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure federal dollars. So maybe at some point, in addition to applying for this ASAP, we could maybe get an update as to where we are on evaluating which of those programs we can apply for and if we have any progress on that.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Commissioner Logan, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I think I agree with my other colleagues that we need to continue looking for grant opportunities and be aggressive with those as well. I've got another comment on something else, but I'll leave it at that until my time's up.
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. I wholeheartedly support this idea. So I can see we have a consensus here, Manager Burton. So would you please look into this and see how best we can benefit from it?
Mayor, commissioners, yes, and we'll circle back with the commission, including an overview on what we've been awarded, where we're at. And the commission will recall that we recently retained the services of Great West Engineering to assist us in these efforts as well.
Thank you. Report of the city attorney.
Mayor, Commissioners, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the city manager.
Mayor, commissioners, I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Communications from Helena Citizens Council, Representative Nancy Perry, you have the floor. Madam Clerk, is she on?
Mr. Mayor, I do not see Ms. Perry on.
Okay, we'll come back to her. Regular items, consider a resolution permitting angle parking along both sides of the Helena Avenue between Lindale Avenue and Robert Streets, the north side of Gallatin Avenue between Cook Streets and Helena Avenue, and on the east side of Cook Street between Gallatin and Helena Avenues. Okay, Transportation Director Kanopke, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
As you recall, on May 8th, the Commission awarded a TIF grant to do this improvements down in the 6th Ward area along Helena Avenue, Gallatin, and Cook Street there. This is the angle parking that is seen on the proposal. Requires the City Commission to take action per City Code 811-3. With this proposal, as was presented previously, we're going to get those shortened, the bulb out there at the Gallatin Helena Avenue intersection to shorten that crossing distance for pedestrians. With the growth of some revitalized buildings down there, this extra parking will allow for folks to visit those businesses without driving around the block 100 times. We also are getting additional ADA parking as required by the PROAG. So I believe it's a good fit for the area, seeing how the business growth that's down there. We did have a couple of conditions in the resolution, as you saw, and they're basically to ensure that the accessible parking gets striped and the signs, the area is signed appropriately. I'd be happy to answer. Our recommendation is to approve this request for angle parking. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Kanopke. I see Commissioner Reed, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Director Kanopke. Director Kanopke, I was hoping you could speak to
You are muted.
I'm not muted. You can't hear?
We can't hear you, Commissioner. You want to try again?
Can you hear me now? No?
Okay, commissioners, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, I got a question for Director Kanopki. Thank you very much for this. With this proposal, how does it fit in with the complete streets policy of the city?
Mayor and Commissioners, some aspects of the complete street policy are being accomplished by this project. The majority of sidewalks that were existing down there, as you can see, were curbside. So with past policy or with past practice, we've extended that short piece along Helena Avenue to match the existing conditions of curbside sidewalk. We're getting the pedestrian crossings, the bulb outs that are part of the complete streets. So I believe we try to include as many complete streets aspects as we can and still fulfill the broader vision for the area. I hope that answers your question.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go
really
ahead.
quickly, can you maybe speak to, so when we last discussed this, obviously the TIF advisory board was very supportive and recommended us approving the project. Can you maybe talk about how living up to some of those broader goals for the community complies with the vision of the TIF district as well?
Mayor and Commissioners. Yeah, so the revitalization of the 6th Ward there is part of the growth policy. It's part of the vision for the city to revitalize these areas, and with the in cooperation with private developers, these areas can be redeveloped as you know, the vanilla bean and all the other great things that are happening over with the previous Helena Industries. But with some of those development comes other lack of parking, lack of other infrastructure, and this accomplishes some of those goals by the crosswalks again, the bulb outs. We also did some improvements last year to the Roberts Helena Avenue, that intersection, to reduce the crossing distance there as well. So it's helping to, you know, make that connective feel down there and providing those access points, whether it's people walking on the sidewalk or parking, to have those facilities to go in and enjoy these other businesses that have started down there.
Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any public comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, there you go.
Hooray. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the disruption there. Director Kanopki, you said something I was having a little trouble hearing, but two questions / comments. One, you mentioned the broader vision for the district, and I'm not sure how we typically weigh a complete streets policy with a broader vision for an area, which is the more powerful force. I don't know how to articulate that, but I'm concerned that if we have a complete streets policy, but it's secondary to other things, I'm not sure how much of a policy it is. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And it was mentioned that there is a neighborhood plan being developed for that area, and I'm wondering how this project fits in with that, or have they not discussed that yet? Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'll start with the second one since it's still in draft form. We've received some preliminary ideas that they have as far as the what they're looking for in the transportation network. We've given some comments, but they're still really in the, I guess, the public outreach phase of that project. And I think as that neighborhood plan progresses, it'll become more detailed. They are trying to meet some specific goals down there with some revitalization and, you know, making the transportation network and other networks work down there. But we'll be trying our best to integrate all the city policies into that plan. And that segues into your question on how do we look at a complete streets policy versus economic development versus other overarching plans. So it really is some taking in the public comment that they've had, the public outreach events, and getting the pulse of the surrounding area. I wouldn't say one outweighs the other. It's just that typically in right of way, typically in older parts of town, we are limited by the amount of right of way that we have. And, you know, we don't just, we look at the multimodal view of that area as far as transportation. And so we try to accommodate all modes of transportation. And in this case, their presentation of the additional parking along with the pedestrian facilities, along with the ADA parking to provide that accessibility component. Yes, unfortunately, we don't have room for a bike lane along Helena Avenue in this case, but that was back to the curbside sidewalks. I think boulevard sidewalks is a preferred alternative. That's how it's stated in city code, but to go back and redo curbside to boulevard standards is a financial investment. And so I think it's just on a case by case basis, Commissioner. And I think when we bring these plans up in front of the commission in admin meetings or other meetings, that the discussions and help guide the actions that we're moving forward to bringing you like we are this evening.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments, public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I do not appear to have any public comment online.
Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioners.
sorry, thank you. I had to gather my thoughts for a moment. Before we go to the vote, I will just say that I like the economic development angle here. I'm, very supportive of all the work being done in this neighborhood. I am concerned that this project is moving forward while we have a neighborhood planning process going on and that we're a bit out of sync here. And I'd like to see if there's a way that we could postpone a decision on this in order to make sure that this is in line with the neighborhood plan. Because if we are investing in that process, I'd like to make sure that there's an opportunity for that to be figured in a bit more fully than it has been. So as of right now, I would not support this project, but I would very much like to support it, assuming it is in line with some of the larger things happening in that neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
would move to approve a resolution conditionally permitting angle parking along both sides of Helena Avenue between Lindale Avenue and Robert Street, the north side of Gallatin Avenue between Cook Street and Helena Avenue, and on the east side of Cook Street between Gallatin and Helena Avenues.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I just might make a comment. I appreciate Commissioner Reed's comments and don't necessarily disagree with him at all. However, I will be supportive of this tonight because those that are on that TIF advisory board have been so deeply engaged in that neighborhood planning process since the creation of the TIF district. They all spend, it's been hundreds of hours that a lot of those stakeholders have spent on really trying to start moving things forward. So I understand the hesitancy to move, but I also don't think that we should be holding up projects that will continue to revitalize the neighborhood that I think are consistent with what those who live there and work there and are growing businesses there are looking for, as noted in the notes from the minutes from the TIF advisory board.
Any other comments? It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Nay.
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Consider a resolution permitting angle parking along the west side of the North Sanders Street between Railroad Avenue and Gallatin Avenue. Director Kanopke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Again, this is angle parking per city code 81 or 11-3. This is just zoomed in there on the middle of the screen there between the red car and the white cars that are already parking as an angle. That's where the request is being made. Again, this is something that's already occurring in this neighborhood. It fits with the street width and still provides enough width for access. And we're getting an ADA compliant parking space in that area as well with this project. We did put conditions on for accessible parking and the appropriate signage for the parking in the area. Staff recommends that the approval of this permit to allow for angle parking between Railroad and Gallatin there.
Comments or questions from the commission? Do we have any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve a resolution conditionally permitting angle parking along the west side of the 1500 block of North Sanders between Railroad Avenue and Gallatin Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
could you say again, Commissioner Reed?
Thumbs up.
Thank you. Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins,
Aye.
the motion carries 5-0.
Consider a resolution relating to $860,000 wastewater system revenue bond, DNRC Water Pollution Control State Revolving Loan Program, Series 2023, authorizing the issuance and fixing the terms and condition thereof. Director Danielson, you have the floor. Good evening.
Good evening. Back in December, we brought before a resolution for reimbursement purposes that meet IRS code regulations in order to procure expenses toward wastewater improvements. Tonight, we have before you the actual resolution in order to issue the bonds with the DNRC for $860,000 for the old sewer pipes and cured in place pipes at multiple locations. It's their normal main replacements that they do on an annual basis. This is for $860,000. They will draw down upon the loan during the fiscal year as they make the improvements. The rate at this time is 2.5%, and this is a 20-year loan. If you have any other questions about the project itself, I know that Deputy Director Ed Coleman is here to answer any of your questions regarding the physical project, but I'm here to present the resolution to execute the loan with the DNRC.
Thank you, Director Danielson. Comments or questions from the commission? Are there any public comments here on this topic? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve a resolution relating to $860,000 wastewater system revenue bond, DNRC Water Pollution Control State Revolving Loan Program, Series 2023, authorizing the issuance and fixing the terms and conditions thereof.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Thumbs up.
thank you. Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins,
Aye.
the motion carries 5-0.
Consider public hearings. Consider Phase 8 commencement for the Craftsman Village of the Crossroad at Mountain View Meadow Major Phase Subdivision. Director Brink, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission.
Good
In
evening.
the interest of time, I will dispatch with a formal PowerPoint presentation, but I will make some comments. And just about, we've got Greg Staley and Mark Runkle here if there's any questions. So tonight before you is a consideration of Phase 8 commencement, which are the first 60 lots of Craftsman Village at the crossroads of Mountain View Meadows, major phase subdivision. As required by MCA, prior to the commitment of each phase of the approved major phase subdivision, the governing body shall hold a public hearing, which we're doing this evening, within 30 working days after receipt of written notice from the subdivider to commence that phase. Staff received written notice of commencement on June the 2nd. After this hearing, the governing body, you, the commission, shall determine whether any changed primary criteria, impacts, or new information exist that creates new potentially significant adverse impacts for the phase in question. Just by reference, those criteria are for major subdivisions, impacts on agriculture, impacts on agricultural water user facilities, the natural environment, wildlife habitat, public health and safety, and then compliance with survey requirements, our city subdivision regulations, local review procedures, provisions of easements, and provision of legal and physical access. After the hearing, the city commission shall issue some supplemental written findings of fact, and you may impose necessary additional conditions to minimize or mitigate potentially significant or adverse impacts identified in the review of the first phase, as well as subsequent phases when they come online. Any additional condition, of course, will have to be met for final plat approval. Staff has identified no potentially significant impacts regarding any additional conditions that will be needed on the original approval for this project. With this, the first phase, there has been no development, so there is no impact. For information, letters were sent out to adjacent owners and those nearby, and legal notice was presented and published in the IR. As of tonight, we've received no written comments regarding any impacts relative to this phase. So in conclusion, at this time and relative to only Phase 8 of the Craftsman Village of the Crossroads at Mountain View Meadows, again, we've identified no potential significant impacts requiring the imposition of mitigating conditions for this phase in question. With that, staff recommends that the commission move and find that there are no additional or no changed primary criteria impacts, or there is no new information that exists creating new potentially significant adverse impacts for Phase 8 of Craftsman Village of the Crossroads at Mountain View Meadows major phase subdivision. And with that, I'll conclude. And again, I'm here, of course, to answer questions. So is Greg Staley and Mark Runkle.
Greg Staley.
Staley Engineering, yes.
Oh, okay.
He's like Greg Worth.
No. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Director Brink, I wasn't able to recognize how many units will this be?
So Phase 8 is 60 lots, 60
Thank you.
units, single
Thank you.
dwelling units, yes.
Are there any public comments on this topic? Madam Clerk,
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I move to approve determining that there are no changed primary criteria impacts, or is there any new information that exists creating a new potentially significant adverse impacts of Phase 8 of the Craftsman Village of the Crossroads at Mountain View Meadows major phase subdivision.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion from the commission? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Do we have Ms. Perry on now? Do you know?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have Ms. Perry online.
Okay. Oh, we have exhausted our agenda. Well, at this time, is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk, do we have any online?
Mr. Mayor, I have no public comment online.
Any final comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Hey, just a quick comment. Our clerk sent out an email regarding some of the commissioners that work full-time, work 8 to 5 jobs, and to make this work, luckily, city commission meetings are at 6. But sometimes our meetings are at 4 o'clock. And to make that work, I know that we have to adjust our schedules, and we either show up early or we work through lunch. But for the public who might be interested in how do you get around it if some of us are state employees, we just make it work by not doing city work. We do state work on our state time, and we have a meeting at 4. We either go in early or we work through lunch. So just want to make the public aware of that. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? If not, this meeting is adjourned.